Thanks very much. It's great to be here. I love coming to the United States. It's, as Ronald Reagan said, it's the last best hope for humanity. And if things don't go well in the United States, they will not go well for my country. So I've got a very strong vested interest in helping to turn things around here. You know, I think America could have a great future ahead of it, or it could go into a very, very sorry state. And we're standing on the cusp of that. A lot of people ask me, you know, how do I find these things? Like it was as, you know, I found the stuff about Frank Marshall Davis. My information was used to expose Van Jones, for instance, as well, who had to stand down from his White House post. Now, what I say is basically, I study the networks. These people aren't there by accident. Van Jones wasn't just plucked out of obscurity to fill an important position in the White House. As anybody who's studied network marketing knows, you have uplines and downlines. And you have to study the whole network right from the bottom of the downline right up the scale to get to the uplines. And I'd just like to talk about a few of Obama's upline people and a few of his downline people. If you look at Frank Marshall Davis, now he came to Hawaii on party orders, in my opinion, to carry out a role in the Hawaiian Islands. But before that time, he worked heavily in Chicago. He was a very, very active communist. And one guy he worked with was a guy who became a very prominent Chicago journalist, a guy called Vernon Jarrett. Now, these two guys worked together in the 40s in the Packing House Workers Strike Committee. They were on the publicity committee together. Now, Vernon Jarrett was never a proven party member, but he was very close to the party, worked with party members, and became a very prominent Chicago journalist. Now, he had a daughter-in-law who's very well known to most of you called Valerie Jarrett, who is now happens to be, you know, basically Obama's brain in the White House. Now, it's a bit of a coincidence to me that, you know, Barack Obama's mentor in Chicago worked closely with the father-in-law of his now current advisor in the White House. Now, Valerie Jarrett's mother, Barbara Bowman, ran a thing called the Frederickson Institute. It was named after a guy called Erickson Institute, I'm afraid, named after a guy called Erik Erikson. He was a left-wing psychologist, worked in San Francisco in the 1940s, lectured at the California Labor School, the Communist Party front, where he probably met with people like Harry Bridges, who was very active in the same organisation. So she named her institute after a well-known leftist, a probable Communist Party member. On her board was a guy called Tom Ayers, better known as the father of Bill Ayers. One of her board members was Bernadine Dawn. So you've got a woman like Valerie Jarrett, who's now a top official in the White House, basically one of the most powerful people in the country, who is directly related in two ways to the socialist Marxist networks around Obama. That could all be accident, it could all be coincidence, but I wasn't born yesterday, and I've never bought a Brooklyn Bridge or a tower in Paris off anybody. Okay, so that's one side of the Obama downline. You look at upline rather. You look at Alice Palmer. Now, when Obama came to prominence in Chicago, it was when he stood as an Illinois state senator. Now, his predecessor was Alice Palmer. She mentored him. She basically offered him her position because she was going to stand for Congress. That fell through. She wanted her position back, and Barack Obama basically gave her the finger and said, no, I'm going to go through with it. So, but if you look at Alice Palmer, now Alice Palmer was a member of the US Peace Council, a top Communist Party front. She was the only African American to cover the 1986 Communist Party of the Soviet Union conference. She was a vice president of the International Organization of Journalists, which was a Soviet front. She went to the Soviet Union and Czechoslovakia on several occasions, worked with and admitted meeting top Soviet officials. She was also a very key ally of the Maurice Bishop in Grenada, the Marxist revolutionary ruler of Grenada, I've got personal invitations from Morris Bishop asking Alice Palmer and her husband to attend the first anniversary of the Grenadian Revolution. So this was another part of Obama's upline. She mentored Obama, brought him to prominence. If you look at David Axelrod, now another one of Obama's key people, now he was mentored in Chicago in the 1970s by a guy called David Simon Cantor and another guy called Don Rose. Both of them were Chicago journalists. They had a little publication called the Hyde Park Kenwood Voices, but David Simon Cantor was a long-time Communist Party member. He was raised in the Soviet Union. His father had fled Boston in the 1930s. He'd been arrested for sedition, took the family to the Soviet Union, brought up little David in the Soviet Union as a good little communist. They came back to America, and eventually David Simon Cantor became a mentor to David Axelrod. And Don Rose, the other partner in this operation, was a hardcore radical, a Marxist, a member of the Chicago Committee to Defend the Bill of Rights, a well-cited Communist Party front. So there's another example of Barack Obama's upline, all of whom were connected in some way to the Soviet Union. If you go a bit further down the track, you look at his downline, you look at people like Van Jones. Well, Van Jones wasn't plucked from obscurity from San Francisco. Van Jones was a member of a little revolutionary group called Storm, standing together to organise a revolutionary movement. And that was a little feeder group, basically. It worked very closely with the committees of correspondence in San Francisco, which was a breakaway from the Communist Party USA. Now, Van Jones was also very close to a woman called Diana Frappier. Diana Frappier worked on his organisations, was a partner in Cop Watch with him when he started his Ella Baker Centre for Human Rights. She was the partner, she basically founded it with him. She was a lawyer. Now, Diana Frappier is the daughter of John and Nancy Frappier, who were both Weather Underground supporters. So here in San Francisco, you've got Van Jones working basically with a couple of former Weather Underground supporters. John Frappier started the Data Centre, which is basically the intelligence arm of the US left. It's a big organisation that's well-funded, well-supported, and supplies monitors people like us, basically, and corporations, businesses, etc. It openly states that it has a Cuba project which is designed to exchange information with Cuba, with Cuban institutions. Openly states it on its website. So here you've got Van Jones sitting in San Francisco, working with Weather Underground types, working with the committees of correspondence. They, in turn, those committees of correspondence people, joined an organisation called Movement for a Democratic Society, based out of Chicago. Now, Movement for Democratic Society is people like Bernardine Dawn, Bill Ayers, Mark Rudd of the Weather Underground, Jeff Jones of the Weather Underground. 4 of the 7 key founders of the Weather Underground are members of this organisation. So Van Jones was chosen just like Barack Obama was chosen. He was a promising young leftist moving in the same, basically in the San Francisco branch of the movement which supported Barack Obama in Chicago. I'd like to quote